Charlie, and we're talking about Thor: Love and Thunder. And I've heard a lot of things about this one. A lot of people are saying it's one of the worst Thor films out there. It's getting really low ratings from other critics. But you know what? As faithful as I am to Marvel, everybody says I have the comic book lens, what have you. I will die on this hill. 10 out of 10 for this one. You really have to be a fan of the comic series that it derives from, and you also have to be a fan of the directing style. And if you've noticed so far from like everything that we've been getting, Phase 4 so far has really delved in these directors. It really hits into the directing styles. Just look at Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness with Sam Raimi. It really hits on the horror style, the Danny Elfman style that he's always had. Taika Waititi, you have his comedic directing, and that's his MO. I mean, Ragnarok, What We Do in the Shadows, Jojo Rabbit. I mean, Jojo Rabbit was really good. It got really dark really fast, but it was a really funny, movie. And so, being a fan of both of those, I think it was great. I don't know. Remember, the original cut was supposed to be 4 hours long, so they took out a lot of new planets, a lot of new characters, and I know that there was a whole lot of this that a lot of casual fans were like, well, he can just do things now? Like, there are certain things that doesn't make sense. It's all lazy writing. No, it's a little bit of lack of knowledge of comic books, but that's why you have guys like me, guys like the nerd of the group. Not all of us are into Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of us just read comic books for fun, and that's what we're here for. When you have questions, you text us in the middle of the night. Hey, I didn't know Thor could enchant Mjolnir. Yeah, so we're gonna get into that. We really pick up right after Endgame. Thor is kind of lost, and he's trying to find himself, right? They've just defeated Thanos. We've lost Iron Man, and, we're trying to see, okay, where's Thor going to go now? And the great Korg, in his monologues, really gives us the entire story of Thor from birth to now, like kind of, here's where he's at. Here's where he's been. We get a Lion King montage. And which, fun fact, did you know that both of Thor's youngest sons play young Thor in this montage? That Kirby design while he's like running super speed into like Thor now. And so I thought those were pretty cool. As well as his wife, the wolf woman he's making out with, that's his wife. His daughter plays Gore's daughter, and turns out to be Thor's new daughter at the very end, but we'll get into that. So Thor's kind of just picking up. He's very kind of just pacifist. I'm here. Let's see what happens, right? And it's very comedic. Like, he's riding Stormbreaker like a witch's broom, and he's like, "Come on, let's go." And the Guardians, he's with the Guardians, and they're kind of annoyed with him, and then they kind of leave him, and he's like, "Take my ship," and he's like, "Oh, okay, this is your ship." I think the Guardians were only in there for about 15 minutes, and you know what? That was great for their third movie coming out. And if you have too much of something in one film, it's like, okay, how are they going to connect these two films? If they don't, that's fine too. Get them out of the way. This isn't their story. If they don't play a big part of the story, that's even fine too. But I think they were handled very well. Taika saying, to James Gunn, "Hey, let me borrow the kids real quick. We're going to go to the pool." And so, it was just all a little fun time. And then we move on to the story. We start to meet Gore, our new God Butcher, played by Christian Bale. And honestly, this was really hard for me, as a fan, and I guess you could say a gatekeeper, as everybody likes to call me, whatever you want to say it. I'm always really big on comic accuracies, right? So when I heard that they weren't going to keep Gore's initial design, I was like, man, that's going to suck. It's going to look stupid. But when they said, well, it's too Harry Potter, it's like, okay, I see what you're saying. And when I saw Christian Bale, I was like, okay, I guess I'll enjoy it. But actually watching the film and actually seeing Christian Bale in action blew it out of the water for me. I mean, he was scary beyond measure. Well, not beyond measure, like, it's not it, but like, he was very scary, very villainy. Really gives you a sense of like, he's got nothing to lose, so like, I'm just gonna jack around and kill, and so He's walking in the desert. He's praying to his God. He loses his daughter, and then a sword calls out to him, kind of like how the Ebony Blade in Eternals calls out to Dane Whitman. So they're not the same swords, okay? And that question a couple times. They're not the same sword. This is the All Black, the Necro Sword, which is the sword of Null, the king of the symbiotes, who kind of creates all of them on the planet Clintar. And so, that sword kind of calls out, will draw power from the user and feed off of their life force. I mean, it's a symbiote. what do you expect it to do? The same thing happens to Eddie in the comic books after wearing Venom for so long. He ends up dying from it. It draws out the worst in people. And so Gore becomes this new God Butcher, and he's just going around just destroying the shit out of everything. All right. And he pulls these creatures from the Shadow Realm, which when they become reality, mimic a lot like symbiotes. And which, fun fact, did you know that all the monsters or a lot of Gore's monsters were designed by the kids of the cast and crew? Like, I thought that was super cool. Invite your kids, like, they're on set with mom and dad. Like, well, let them help out a little bit. Same sense as the Necrosword, Mjolnir is kind of doing the same thing to Jane. Now, in this one, we follow two different comic books. We have Thor, God of Thunder, which is the initial storyline of Thor versus Gore, the God Butcher, which amazing story by Jason Aaron. And you also have the Mighty Thor, which is how Jane Foster is worthy enough to become Thor. Now, of course, you have your little changes for the MCU. This is 50% Thor, God of Thunder, 20% the Mighty Thor, which is also written by Jason Aaron, and then you're 30% Marvel. To mix and match somehow, right? So, in this one we learn that poor Jane, has cancer, stage 4, and the weight of that really carries into the entire film. She's trying to hide it, trying to be strong as she always has been, and she just heard Mjolnir calling out to her, right? Well, then we come to find out that Thor enchanted Mjolnir when they were dating, and he said, please promise me you're always going to protect her, right? And then you see the little enchantment. Now, for a lot of casual viewers are like, oh, what? He could just do that? Yes, when his father died, he becomes King Thor, so all the powers of Odin invest into Thor, and he can do that. Now, granted, he was drunk when he did it. That's why he talks to Mjolnir like a jealous ex. So, going on into Jane's story, every time she picks up a hammer, same as the comic books, it increases her cancer, right? And it just accelerates it times 10, and just makes her sick and makes her even more sick, right? And so we're seeing that throughout the film. And they're telling her, the more you pick it up, the faster you're going to die. And it becomes kind of a prevailing weight in between her and Thor when she finally tells him, like, hey, look, I have cancer. And Thor was like, oh my God. Like, we'll get through this. Like, what do you want to do for the rest? How much time do you have? And he's trying to not lose her again, because when they see each other again, she's like, what's it been, like 3-4 years? And he's like, actually 8 years, 5 months and 3 days. Because remember, Jane got snapped in Infinity War, so she misses out on 5 years. So to her, it's only been a 3-year break. And Thor has been through hell and back, going from God bod to dad bod. Gore ends up going to New Asgard, stealing a lot of the kids to draw out Thor. He's already killed most of the other gods out there. And then we find out Meek, remember Meek from Ragnarok, is a woman. I mean, has she always been a woman? Like, I don't remember any of that. And so, they were like, it was kind of just like very casual, like the way she was dressed, and I was like, okay, cool, awesome, and but it was just like, who would have thought, and then Thor gets these screaming goats, which now the goats are based off of Norse mythology, Grinder and Tooth Gnasher, and they provide a lot of services to Thor in the Norse mythology. So in the comic books, it's the same sense. Now, the screaming goats was inspired apparently by the Taylor Swift meme that apparently Taika Waititi didn't even know existed, but I enjoyed it. Every time they were on screen, they were just screaming obnoxiously, and I was like, this is freaking hilarious. And so Thor goes off to Omnipotence City, and he meets Zeus and all the other gods, right? And where our heroes are sitting right in front of them, you see Bast, who is the Wakandan god. The imagery of the panther, right? And so you have like an Aztec god, the Mayan god, and there's just every other pantheon. I think Ra was also there. I think maybe Khonshu, but I don't think he was invited to the party. But of course Zeus gets there, and everybody's like, Zeus, and he's super like, egotistic. He's super like, yeah, look at me, I'm the top god, and this and that, and he's doing, flashing things with his bolt, and he's doing all these tricks and stuff, and people were like, and they're losing. Thor ends up going up to him and saying, hey, we need help. This butcher is coming, and he's coming for all of us. And Zeus is like, no, there's nothing coming. There is no war, Ba Sing Se, right? And then he gets up to him. He's like, no, we're very afraid. We're super scared. And so, Thor is like, well, don't meet your heroes. And he tells him, like, I don't care what you have to say. You're not coming to the party. You're not invited. We don't want anything to do with this. We're going to stay here and we're going to hide. You can hide here as well. And then that's when Valkyrie and Lady Thor kind of jump in and save, he's chained up. And so, they defeat Zeus, which is very brutal. Zeus throws the thunderbolt. Thor catches it and chucks it right back at him. I was like, he just killed Zeus. I was like, can he do that? Like, I wasn't expecting that, right? And so, kill Zeus. They get out of there, and then they go off to fight Gore, right, at the center of the universe. Now, at the center of the universe, we also have a bunch of other eternal pantheons, if you will. You have the Living Tribunal, the Watcher, Lady Death, Agony, Eternity, right? And so he's using the Bifrost as a gate to get into eternity. Right, and so that's where the children are, and he tells, Thor arrives, and he tells them, get your weapons, and they're like, well, we don't have a lot of training. He's like, that's fine, we'll take care of it, and he gives them, although temporarily, the power of Thor. Again, people are like, oh, he can do that? Yes, he can do that. As the god of thunder, as King Thor, right? He can do that. And so they end up fighting against the monsters, which I thought was really cool to see the kids fighting, like the little girl with the stuffed animals and like the laser beams. It was like almost like an episode of The Boys, right? When they take Temp V. And so, they defeat the monsters. It's all happy-go-lucky. Jane has been bedridden because, of course, the hammer is just, really, really, accelerating her cancer. And just before, she has a talk with Thor, and he's like, hey, if you pick this up again, there's no going back. This is going to kill you. So, of course, she makes the ultimate sacrifice, and she comes in, and they defeat the Necrosword. Gore ends up getting into eternity, and he's like, I just want my daughter back. And eternity grants him that, right? But at the same time, for that, he sacrifices his life because he's also been drained of his life force from the Necrosword. And Thor's holding Jane as she's dying, and Gore tells him, protect my daughter, and she says she won't be alone. She looks at Thor because she knows he'll protect her. And he even, confirms that to Gore, like, yes, I will protect you, protect your daughter. And so Gore's daughter, who is also empowered with the powers of eternity, becomes Love and then Thor's Thunder, right? And so you see that in the movie. I thought it was really cool to see, like, okay, Thor's got a daughter now, right? So where is this going to take us in a story? We don't know. We don't know where Phase 4 is taking us. Could be Secret Wars. We still have Loki for the TVA and his show, so we could see him coming back and talking to Thor. Now, back to the main storyline, right? We have 2 post-credit scenes, and one is Zeus. Apparently he lives from getting right through the chest with the lightning beam, and he's there with his Zeusettes, which is, all the groupies he hangs out with, and he's telling them, like, when did we become a joke? They used to pray for us for anything, for food, for hunger. I mean, not for hunger. They used to pray for us for food, for shelter, and we're the jokes. Now they just want to see one of their superheroes. And he's like, you know what? Never again. Not anymore. I'm gonna take this back over. We're gonna show them who's boss, right, my son? And who shows up? Hercules, played from, which a lot of people noticed from Ted Lasso, is Roy Goldstein or Roy Kent. I don't know which one's which because I don't watch the show. But he shows up and he's like, yes, father, right? And then Hercules is in the MCU. Now, this is a rivalry between him and Thor in a lot of the comic books, but they also become good friends. And his power matches not only Thor, but Immortal Hulk as well. Like in the latest Maestro comics, Maestro Hulk decimates Hercules after losing to him once, right? And so he was like, hit me once, shame on you. Hit me twice. Or hit me once, shame on me. Hit me twice, shame on you, right? And he decimates him. He burns that dude, right, in the comic. And I mean, his power level is just beyond imaginable. So we could see a team up maybe in Secret Wars, maybe in Secret Invasion coming up, maybe a side little hustle, like while he's dealing with one thing, he's got to also deal with this. But it was really good. I mean, overall, I'm going to die on this hill. Like I said, 10 out of 10. It was very enjoyable for me. Plus, we also get our stage actors back. Luke Hemsworth as Thor, Matt Damon as Loki, and it was really weird to see Melissa McCarthy as Hela. Giving us the recap of the last film, just kind of like we saw in Ragnarok. And but overall, this was really great. I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people didn't really enjoy it, but you know what? For the nerds, just let us have this one. All right, guys. And, I know we've talked about a lot. There's so many Easter eggs to go through. I mean, look at all the other videos. Look at ours. I hope we've kind of touched base on some of them. And, let's see where Phase 4 takes us. We still have Secret Wars coming up, Secret Invasion, Ant-Man versus the Wasps, and, and Miss Marvel, and then the Marvels, So we have a lot going on right now. So, one bad apple out of the, 46 movies that we've already had, I don't think it'll kill you guys. But like I said, enjoyed it through and through, 10 out of 10. All right, guys, hope you liked this review, and we'll catch you guys next time.